This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so in the last session, what we were talking about accounts payable transactions. We discussed about master data. We understood how vendor master is created in any organization. And then we understood how do you receive the invoice and how invoice is processed, what parameters we need to consider while recording the invoice. Now, next thing, let us try to understand how payments are made to a vendor in any organization. Before I make the payment, let us try to look at outstanding of our vendor account. To see the vendor outstanding, T code is FBL1N. These all the transactions, whatever currently we are going to see, we are going to execute. These are all day-to-day mandatory routine activities of any user in any organization working in accounts payable division or accounts payable department. Now, when somebody is asking you, do you have experience in accounts payable, or when you're telling that you have experience or knowledge understanding in accounts payable, these day-to-day business processes which are carried out in a business process is what we have to understand, not from the SAP configuration point of view. Remember, when somebody is asking you about any particular area, they are not interested in knowing your understanding on the configuration part. Instead, they are more interested on how familiar you are with the practical business process on that area. Because what you do on the configuration side, what you see from a business point of view are very different. You will find a lot of differences. These differences is what you need to understand. Tomorrow, when you're working for multiple clients on any particular area, you will find slight differences. Make sure you are able to understand the differences and you're able to understand, manage your project, or your confidence level will not come down when you see things are different in any project, which is practically a possible scenario wherever you work. For any two clients, if you take, you will find a lot of differences between the business processes, configuration and all. Make sure you will not stick to a one single standard process. Based on the client, based on the business requirement, business process, they would have configured or the different functionalities may be implemented. Try to understand why it is done this way. Accordingly, you need to manage. Okay, so in the vendor line item display, what I'll do is I'll put my company code, which is 9PBI, assuming that I do not remember what is the vendor. If I try to run the report from this screen itself, now in real time, normally when you do it here, things you will be having limited company codes, limited vendors, limited transactions. Everything will work just like that. But when you see it practically, assuming that you are in a project, you are trying to run a particular report, always remember in the practical environment, you will be having lot of vendors, lot of transactions. Just like that, you should not go and run any report like this when you're in any project, because in the project you may be having 1,000 vendors may have 20,000 open transactions. To pull the 20,000 open transactions, system may take good amount of time, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You may not have that much time to wait for it, because you are not planning to look at every vendor. You may be planning to look at the limited vendor. In that case, instead of FBL1N, the other report is ideal. The other report I mean to say is FBL1H. This is your line item browser. I'll put FBL1H. In this FBL1H, what I will do, I will pass only my company code, which is 9PBI. Open items as on date. If you see both the reports, here also just company code open item as on today. Here also just company code open item as on today. Vendor line item display will display all the line items line by line. That is why it is line item display. Every line item will be displayed. Now, vendor line item browser will not display all the line items. It will club the line items based on the account assignments or based on certain criterias. Now, first I'll run vendor line item browser. Let me click on execute. If I click on execute, it is giving number of rows displayed 1. Count is always displayed at the bottom left. If you see at the bottom, you can see rows displayed 1. I'll just push this side. And this is your company code, fiscal year, period number 10. This is the supplier. This is the outstanding amount, 26,000. Now, assuming that you have 1000 vendors, it will not show each vendor all the line items. It will give you like this. Breakup it will give. Wherever you want to see the detailed breakup, select the appropriate line. This is your database rows, number of entries that are accumulated. After this, you click on this icon called call line item report. If you call line item report, it will take you inside the transaction details. Now, whenever you click on something, you're able to see the detailed line item. This is called as drill down functionality. I'll click on this. If I click on this, it will take me inside a report called vendor line item display. Okay. Now down below, if you see the transaction code, it is still FBL1H, but I did not access the line item report directly. I have been redirected here based on the line item browser report through drill down functionality. I will come out. Now on this screen, vendor line item browser, one vendor account I am able to see outstanding of 26,000. Next one, what I'll do, I will look at vendor line item display. From the vendor line item display also, assuming that I'm not giving any vendor account, but normally it is always recommended whenever you pull the report, you have to pass the vendor number. In short, supplier account number. Since we have only one supplier, I am straight away proceeding to execute this. If I click on execute, let's see the output. You are getting 26,000. Now always remember, your vendor account is always supposed to show a negative balance, as your vendor is a liability. Liability shows credit balance. Vendor account balance is supposed to show credit balance. When we are talking about vendor account to show credit balance, you're not talking about vendor line item to show credit balance. Now this is called as a line item. This is called as a line item. Line item is nothing but the transaction in which vendor account is posted. Now, as we know, whenever you record any transaction to a vendor account, you can either record a debit to a vendor account, you can also record a credit to a vendor account. Depending on the nature of a transaction, vendor account can be debited or it can be credited. But when you're talking about vendor account should always show a credit balance, you're not talking about individual transaction credit. You're talking about overall vendor closing balance. When I say overall vendor closing balance, you should always look at the total in the yellow highlighted column. You should always look at the highlighted in the yellow column or the sum at the bottom. Okay, so this is 26,000. Your individual transaction can be debit or credit, but when you take all the transactions, when you look at the overall account balance, it has to be a credit balance. This is your ideal vendor account balance. This is the second report that you are seeing. There is the third report which you can see for your vendor account, which is your FK10N. This is the third report which is used on a daily basis in your accounts payable. If I go to FK10N, here in FK10N also I will put vendor number, company code. I want the vendor closing balance for 2023 fiscal year, in short for the current year. Pass your vendor number, company code, fiscal year, click on execute. When you click on execute, it will give you the closing balance of the vendor account at every period end. Currently, if you see, the first column is balance carry forward. We all know that there is something called balance carry forward functionality in accounting. This balance carry forward is applicable only for the balance sheet account. Balance carry forward is not applicable for P&L account. Vendor is not a P&L account. Vendor is a balance sheet account. For any balance sheet account, there is a balance carry forward functionality. What this balance carry forward functionality will do, it will take whatever the closing balance at the year end into the next year beginning. For example, at the end of fiscal year 2022, if there was any balance in the vendor account will show as balance carry forward here. Okay, similarly, if I look at this, currently I am in fiscal year 2023. For fiscal year 2023, you need to look at the last period. Last period here is a 16. As we know, in accounting, especially in SAP, you are going to have overall 16 periods, 12 normal periods plus 4 special period. When you are looking at any kind of report, system will always display 16 period. If you are using a special period, it is fine. If you are not using, just ignore it. Now at the end, system is going to always consider period number 16 balance. Closing balance in period number 16 is 26,000 negative. What I'll do, I'll come back. I'll try to put next fiscal year 2024. I'm trying to look at the account balance for this vendor in fiscal year 2024. Let me run the report. If I run the report, currently what system is giving, it is giving a message, no data was read for fiscal year 2024. Why no data was read for fiscal year 2024? You need to understand this point. If I go to 2023 once again, if I run the report here, you can see there is an icon called balance carry forward. Now, when there is a separate icon for balance carry forward, there is a separate activity for balance carry forward. So at the end of the every year, we need to run a transaction code called FAGL and there is one more transaction to carry forward vendor and customer balances. When you execute this balance carry forward activities, system will roll up or roll over balances from current fiscal year to the next fiscal year into the new fiscal year. If you are not able to see the account balances in the new fiscal year, this represents the balances are not carry forwarded to the next fiscal year. This is one of your year-end activity which you have to see. Tomorrow when somebody is asking you, can we directly see the account balance in next year? No, you cannot see unless and until you perform balance carry forward activity. We will do this balance carry forward activity to see how balances are rolled over to the next fiscal year. Now, this is another report. Here what you are going to understand, if there is any balance which is carry forwarded from last year, balance carry forward will show you, and period wise it will tell you what is the amount processed. Currently for this 2023, it is giving you the data in period number 10, as we processed invoice in 30th November or we processed the invoice in October month. October month is period number 10. That is why in period number 10 it is giving there is a credit posting in the vendor account. It will always give you the total of credited transactions, total of debited transactions. If you post another credit, 26,000 will be added with another credited transaction. Always net credit balance, net debit balance will be shown here, and then sum of debit and credit will be your balance. This balance, whatever you see here, is called as FTM balance, balance for the month. There is a term called for the month balance. There is another term called year to date balance. This is your year to date. Year to date is nothing but from the year beginning till date. From the year beginning till date is called as year to date balance. And this is your sales purchase. You can just ignore the sales purchase column. We are only concerned about these two columns. If somebody is asking you what is my the vendor balance for the month, vendor balance is 26,000. Vendor balance year to date is this one. Cumulative when to see, balance when to see, you have to understand. Here you are able to see same balance. After posting a few more entries, we will come back to the same report. Then I'll explain you how numbers are getting changed. How do we differentiate between for the month balance, year to date balance. Now let me come back. Remember, these three reports are mandatory to be remembered. No other go, you have to remember it. I will come back. Now I'll close these reports. Browser report, balance report I've closed. I just kept open only the line item display report. Okay. Now next one, let us talk about vendor payments. Vendor payments. Now, when you're talking about vendor payment, first we need to understand when you're talking about vendor payment, we're talking about doing settlement with the vendor. Now, whatever the invoice that you've received from the vendor, you are receiving the vendor invoices based on the purchases that you have made. When you're talking about purchases, you can purchase either a product or a service. In short, a physical material, physical item you will purchase, or a service that you would have received. Now, how and when the vendor account will be used? Vendor account will be used in general whenever you perform any credit transaction. Whenever you perform any credit transaction, vendor account will be used. Now, when you're talking about credit transactions, you're talking about purchasing today, paying later. Purchase now, pay later is nothing but your credit transaction. For every organization, whenever you talk about vendor account, you will have a credit period. When we talk about credit period, every company will have some credit period with the supplier or vendor stating within 30 days we will have to make the payment, within 45 days, within 15 days, or you are eligible to get a discount of 5% or 10%. Certain terms and conditions are there. All these terms and conditions are related to your payments. All these terms and conditions are related to payment. That is why we normally call it as terms of payment or payment terms. You call it as either terms of payment or payment terms, because these are the terms and conditions agreed between buyer and seller. Whenever I make the purchase, I have to release the payment within this terms, or considering these terms I need to release the payment. Now, based on the payment terms, every company will have certain strategy to release the payment. Now, no company wants to make payment early unless there is a benefit. When you're talking about making payment early without any benefit, we are talking about getting some discount. Some vendors, what they will do, they will say that, okay, you need to pay me 1000, but your due date is, assuming that the due date for your invoice is 10th of November, but if you pay before 5th of November, I will give you 2% discount. So to get that early discount, we will be releasing the payment on time. Otherwise, you will not release the payment unless the due date. Most of the companies will process the payments based on the due date. Just like that, they will not release the payment. In short, if you are able to see this report, this report is talking about there is a liability of a 26,000. You cannot just like that say that there is a liability of a 26,000. You have to always look at when this liability is due for payment. When this liability is due for payment, that you can see based on the net due date column on the report. If it is not there, from the layout you need to add it. On this report you can see a due date called 15/10/2023. So according to us, due date is already exceeded. According to us, due date is already exceeded. So this is overdue now. This is overdue. Now you will find a symbol called DD here. DD is nothing but net due date symbol. This due date symbol will have three icons. One is not due, second one is due, third one is overdue. You'll have three due date icons, three due date symbols: not due, due, overdue. Currently this is your overdue. Now, next one, when it comes to payment, you have payment can be made in either cash, so you can make payment either in cash mode or in bank mode. Now most of the companies will process the payment in bank mode, not in the cash mode. So as you know, in order to use cash, we have to use a functionality called cash journal, which we have already set up. In order to use bank, we have to set up a house bank, which we have already set up. Now technically we are ready with our SAP configuration to process the payment. Just like that, you are not supposed to make the payment entry without cash, without bank. Always remember, either cash payment or bank payment is used in any organization. To use cash payment, cash journal is a must. To use bank payment, house bank is a must. Without creating a house bank, understanding the concept of house bank, similarly, without creating a cash journal, understanding the concept of house bank, strictly payment entries are not to be processed, right? Because we are not trying to do the data entry, we are not planning to become an end user. When our intention is to become a consultant, understand the business process, in a similar way, we have to carry out the activities. Now, assuming that when I do a payment, now I'll put types of payments. When I talk about a type of payment, first one I will say payment against invoice. First of all, I will say payment against invoice, or this is also called as a standard payment. Payment against invoice or standard payment. Second one, I will say partial payment. Third one, I will write residual payment. Fourth one, I will say on account or open account payment. Fifth one, I will say down payment or advance payment or token amount payment. On account payment, this can also be called as unapplied payment. This can be called in different ways in different organizations by different people. So you should not get confused. I only know what is invoice, payment against invoice, or what is normal payment. You cannot say that no, I don't know what is standard payment, what is payment against invoice, what is normal payment. But when you see a payment practically while recording the transaction, you will have different type of payments. We need to understand how different type of payments are handled. Now I will be simulating different payments just to show you how system will behave. First one, let us try to understand what is payment against invoice. Now in this scenario, I am assuming all are bank payments. Mode, I'll put bank. Okay, we are assuming bank payment mode. I'm not assuming a cash payment. Cash payment I will see after we understand the bank payment. In bank payment, let's say if I wanted to make payment against invoice, point number one, you need to know what is the outstanding amount. Whenever I want to make payment against invoice, first thing that I need to know is what is the current outstanding. If I go to my vendor line item report, no other go, you will understand what is current outstanding report unless and until you see the vendor line item report. It is a mandate. Without looking the vendor line item report, no user, no company will release the payment to any vendor. Even when you make the payment, make it a habit. You are going to look at the vendor line item report. From the vendor line item report, you understand the vendor liability. Accordingly, you will decide which invoice is to be paid, what is the due date, how much we need to pay, are we getting any discount, or we need to make the total payment. According to this, currently there is no discount. You have to pay 26,000. Due date was 15 October. Ignore the posting date, due date. Okay. There may be differences here. Now we will have to understand all the differences. Why posting date is 30/10 and why due date is 15/10. This is because of your invoice date. Okay, so these points we will understand while we are trying to understand the aging calculation of your vendor account. Now 26,000 is what you need to pay. Why you are paying 26,000? You need to understand it. 26,000 we are trying to pay because we have purchased something from the vendor account. For the purchase, we have to release the payment. In short, this is payment against invoice. I have an open invoice. For this open invoice, I am trying to do the settlement with the vendor. In short, I am releasing the payment to vendor. Here you need to understand what is the invoice number. This is your vendor invoice number. Amount is 26,000. To make the payment, first thing that you need to use is F-53. This is your normal payment. F-53 is your normal payment, post outgoing payment. So here only the payment is processed, nothing else. When I say nothing else, when you're talking about payment, we have two modes of payment. One is cash payment, second one is check payment. Sorry, bank payment. Currently, we are not talking about cash payment, we are only talking about bank payment. Through bank, there are again two ways. Either you can issue a check to a vendor or you can transfer funds to the vendor bank account directly. Either of these cases, you need some source. If you want to process check payment, you need to write a check. If you want to process the online transfer to the vendor, you need vendor bank account details. Assuming you do not have either of this. In this case, it says normal payment. In this case, when I say it is a normal payment, only the payment document will be processed. Settlement is off the screen. When I say settlement is off the screen, your F-53 screen is not responsible or is not going to generate any information related to payment. Any information related to payment, if it is a check or it is to be an online transfer, system will not provide any information if you are using only F-53. You need to understand payment and then settlement. Payment system is going to write only the payment accounting entry. In system, your outstanding will become zero, but practically how you are settling with the vendor? Whether you issued a check or you did a bank transfer. If you issued a check, what is the check number? If you did a bank transfer, what is the transfer reference number? These 2 points are not available or not possible if you are using F-53. Right? So here what I'll do, I'll try to release the payment today. I will try to release the payment today. Let me check if period is open. Okay, period is open. I'll just come out. Date is today. Always remember, any vendor payment that you are processing, your payment document type is strictly cased. Strictly cased. You are not supposed to create your own payment document type even when practicing. These are standard points and are to be used as it is in any project. Even when you are practicing, do not experiment on these things. KZ company code 9PBI, posting date is the same. Always remember, whenever you try to release or whenever you are processing any payment, you are strictly supposed to record the same day as the payment date. I cannot say that I am processing a payment today and I will put tomorrow's date or I will put yesterday date. Strictly not allowed, because if you use future dates, if you use back dates for payment entries, it will create unnecessary problems, unnecessary issues in your bank reconciliations. Strictly, if you are processing a payment today, use today's payment date, posting date. If you are processing payment tomorrow, you process payment document tomorrow only, not today. If you did a payment yesterday, you should have posted it yesterday. But still you can create the payment document today for yesterday's payment, but that is not a regular practice in any organization. When we know that it is not a regular practice, let us not do those kind of experiments while practicing also. Whatever you are understanding, whatever you are feeding in your mind at the beginning, those things will remain as it is, and it will be very hard to eliminate them in future if you find different points. Right, document number, as we know, we will not be updating as we are going to use internal document number range. Posting period, as usual, from the posting date based on the fiscal year variant. Payment currency. Now this is very important when you're recording any payment document. If your invoice is in INR, you need to look at your invoice document. If your invoice is processed in INR, you will be releasing the payment in INR. If your invoice is processed in dollar, you will be releasing a payment in dollar. It's very rare that INR invoice will be paid in dollar or dollar invoice is paid in INR. But this is a possible scenario. This is if your invoice currency and payment currency are the same, you call it as normal payment. If your invoice currency, payment currency are one and the same, you call it as normal payment. Sometimes your invoice may be received in INR, but you are releasing the payment in dollar. Or you received invoice in dollar, you are releasing payment in INR due to different reasons. In that case, that is called as cross currency payment. When we talk about cross currency payment, invoice currency, payment currency are not same, they are different. Whenever you find a term called cross in SAP, it is between two different points. If it is the same point, there is no term called cross. If there are two different points, there are two different elements, then you will bring a point called cross. When you're talking about cross currency payment, invoice currency, payment currency are different. People might ask you, what is cross currency payment? Can we make cross currency payment? Don't get confused. What is cross currency payment? Your base currency and payment currency are different. Base is your invoice, payment is your payment. Now here invoice is in INR. I am trying to release the payment in INR only. Now exchange rate, if you want to consider any specific rate, normally we don't use it. Reference, I will put here something related to payment for invoice. Now here I can put invoice number if I want, or I can simply put payment for invoice. Same thing in clearing text. Next one, you need to update bank account number here. If you are using a concept called cash accounting for your house bank, you'll have to put house bank and account ID. Otherwise, even for the reporting purpose, you can put it. Nothing wrong in it. Open the drop down. When you open the drop down for the house bank, you will get the house bank. Double click on house bank and then open the drop down at your account ID. When you open the drop down for the account ID, you will get the house bank account ID. Select the appropriate house bank account ID. When you press enter after this, when I press enter, automatically system is bringing one GL account. From where this GL account is coming? This GL account is coming from your house bank configuration. Remember, whenever you define any house bank, we are updating bank main account in the house bank configuration, in the house bank account connectivity. From there it is coming. Now we know that we are not going to use house bank main account or bank main GL account anywhere except your bank reconciliation place. Strictly bank main GL accounts are not used anywhere except during BRS. Keep this point in your mind. You are not supposed to use any GL account which is ending with 0 for bank unless and until you are performing BRS. Only during the BRS activity bank main account is used, otherwise strictly bank sub account to be used. Now what is our bank sub account here? If I open the drop down, account, company code, enter, let's say HDFC Bank, check outgoing. Ignore this check because I'm not printing any check now. Assuming that this is your HDFC Bank outgoing account, select the outgoing account. Even though the system is automatically populating a GL account, you can change the GL account. Enter this. When you press enter, it is giving a error message asking you to input value date for account 1310102. As we discussed, whenever you process any transaction for bank GL account, value date becomes mandatory. This is the valid point even in the real environment. In short, whenever you create any GL account for bank, make sure value date becomes mandatory in your field status group, or update the field status group where the bank value date is mandatory. In short, G005 whatever, where bank value date is mandatory, that field status group you need to assign. Now we talked about something called future payment dates, which is nothing but there is something called a PDC payment. Now let me type something here, PDC payments, in short, post dated payments. When you talk about PDC payment, we are talking about post dated payment. Now I am processing the payment document today, but I want this payment to take place or to take effect maybe after a month or after 2 months. In that case, I will be recording future payment date, which is nothing but value date. I will be using value date. In this case, I am releasing the payment today itself. I can open the value date. Value date is nothing but date on which the payment is valid, date on which payment is effective. Server. Now, don't think that every payment is the same payment document. You have to understand there are different types, different scenarios within payment. We have to understand, and according to the scenario, you are able to apply which method and how you can release the payment or how you can process the payment. When you are working for any client, they will be processing payments in different ways. When we say they are going to process the payment in different ways, based on the payment document or based on the queries, suggestions, issues that are raised by your client, try to understand how they would have raised payment and what is their query. How do you understand the process first? Otherwise, what will happen? According to us, payment means F-53, bank account, vendor account, some open invoice, then click on save. But it is not the case when you are in any organization, when you are in any project. It's not opening. Let me log in again. Okay. F-53 INR payment for invoice. Next one, what we did was we selected house bank, we selected account ID, bank GL account we have given, value date I am going to provide today's date because payment is initiated today, and invoice outstanding amount. Let me run the vendor line item report again. FBL1N 26,000 is the vendor outstanding, and this is the invoice number. Now we are talking about payment against invoice. Whenever you are talking about payment against invoice, you should know the invoice number. When you are talking about invoice number, you are talking about our invoice number, not vendor invoice number. Okay, our invoice number means that invoice when you recorded in your accounting, system will generate one document number. That invoice number is what you are talking about, not the vendor invoice number. Copy this invoice document number and go back to SAP. And amount was 26,000. Okay, I'll put amount 26,000. Now here if you see there is a option or there is a field called profit center. I am not giving any profit center here. Okay, I'll put invoice payment. Remember, I am not giving any profit center here. Why I am not giving any profit center? Because we understood there is something called a document splitting. According to document splitting, whenever you process payment against invoice, it's not only the payment, it is strictly payment against invoice. When you're talking about payment against invoice, at the time of payment, you're telling the system this payment is for which existing invoice number in the vendor account. If you do not know the invoice number but you're processing the payment, in that case you have to put profit center. If you know that you are processing payment for a particular invoice, you do not have to put any profit center, as system is going to derive the profit center based on passive document splitting method. System will bring passive document splitting functionality here to get the profit center in the payment document based on the invoice document. Okay. We are not giving any profit center here. Next one, account. This is your vendor account. If you know the vendor code, you can directly input. If you do not know, open the list, find out the vendor account. We created Dinesh Stores as our vendor. Select your Dinesh store, and after that, now here again, there is one thing, you can process payment to one vendor account in one go, or you can process payment to multiple vendor accounts in one go. If you want to process payment to multiple vendor accounts in one go, you have to select other account here. If you select other account, you can input other vendor account here. Okay. And next one, you know that you are going to process the payment against invoice. If you know the invoice number, you can select a document number here so that you can directly call up the respective open invoice. Otherwise, you need to select none. If you select none, system will bring all the outstandings. From the outstanding list, you need to select where is the invoice that you want to settle. If you know that the invoice number that you are going to pay, it is always recommended you use document number here. And then click on process open item. When you click on process open item, whatever the additional selection that you provide, it will give a prompt for it. It is asking you to select a document number because I have selected a document number there. I will copy and I'll paste here the invoice number. Once you put invoice number, press enter. When I press enter, you need to make sure what message you are getting at the bottom. There are two type of messages. First message, specification stored, further values can be entered. This means your invoice is currently open. When you get this message, specification stored, further values can be entered, this invoice is currently open. Sometimes what will happen, you are planning to make a payment for a particular invoice, but by the time you release the payment or by the time you're trying to make the payment, somebody would have already processed the payment or that invoice is no longer outstanding. In that case, you will get no open item found. You will get a warning message. When you get that warning message, you need to understand this document is currently not outstanding or this document is currently not open, which I'll show in the next transaction. When you get this, the document that you have given is valid. After this, click on process open item again. If you click on process open item, you will see the option here. First thing that you have to pay attention is ignore the amount what is coming here. Always look at the days in arrears. This days in arrears, it is showing us 17. Days in arrears, it is showing us 17. Now, if I go to vendor line item report, in the vendor line item report, look at the invoice date, which is 1510, posting date is 3010, due date is 1510. And from 1510, now I'll say due date. Okay, due date is what, this is 10, 15. 1510 is your due date, and I'll put payment date. I am trying to release the payment today. Now I have listed a due date, payment date. Now I will put days in arrears. When I say days in arrears, it is your outstanding date. You will find this all even in your electricity bill and all. If you see your electricity bill, if you are having any late payment outstanding, you will find days in arrears or something, which is nothing but outstanding days. It is the difference between your payment date and your due date. If I deduct or if I do a calculation, the difference between my payment date and due date, you can see payment date and due date difference is 17. What 17? It is positive 17 here. And if you go to your SAP, it is positive 17 here. If you go to SAP, it is positive 17. If your days in arrears is positive, it is overdue. It is overdue by 17 days. You are making 17 days late payment. You are making 17 days late payment. If it is not due, if you are paying early, then it will be a negative sign. Negative arrears means it is not yet due, but you are paying early. Positive arrears means it is overdue, you are paying late. Slowly you have to understand all these points. Tomorrow your user, your client might ask, what is this 17 days? Now they may want to know whether they are making payment early or it is a delayed payment. If it is delayed, delayed by how many days? 17 days. This is what you have to understand. Now after selecting this, you need to understand what is the INR gross. There is something called gross, and down below you have something called gross net. If I click on gross net, nothing is happening. Okay, this is your INR net. This is your INR gross. Nothing is happening when I switch between INR gross, INR net, and there is another thing called clearing currency, local currency. Here also nothing is happening because currency is the same. We were talking about original currency or the invoice currency and the payment currency. Payment document is also called as clearing document. Now your payment currency, invoice currency, if there is a difference, then this switch currency will show you the differences. Now make sure your invoice is selected here. Whatever the amount that you are giving will be updated under assigned column. Whatever you see here, it is your assigned column. This is 26,000 negative. If you see there is a negative sign at the end, same thing, this is updated here, 26,000 negative, and the amount 26,000 negative is here. Amount entered is 26,000 negative here. Amount entered is 26,000 negative here, which means system is telling you have to select a 26,000 negative value from the vendor account. System is telling you have to select 26,000 negative value from here, so that whatever you select here will be a debit. Now this debit, this credit will come up to a sum of 0. So when we have the further entries like debit memo or credit memo, I'll explain you the differences. Plus minus symbol, how do you understand and how you should know between these points. Most of the people will get confused here. These minute confusions should not be there. Once you ensure that amount entered, amount assigned is becoming equal, then go to document on the top, click on simulate. This is the first point. You need to click on simulate. This is simulation will tell you the accounting entry. As we already discussed, don't read first item debit, second item credit. Always see what is the posting key and what is the amount sign. Always see what is the posting key, what is the amount sign, because SAP will display the entry according to how you have given the data. While recording the payment, what did we do? If you see this payment screen, while recording the payment, system is asking us to first give bank account. That is why in your simulation, bank account is coming first. After bank account, it is asking you to give vendor account. That is why vendor account is coming next. So don't get, because it's quite common for everybody. We tend to get confused between debit and credit, as we are used to see first line is debit, second line is credit. It is not every time. Here if it is first line is credit, bank outgoing account credit, vendor account debit. If you see positive amount, which means a debit. If you see the negative amount, which means a credit. Now point number one that you have to understand is, whenever there is a payment document or payment entry that you are processing, there is something called profit center field. This profit center we are not supposed to input. Profit center we are not supposed to input because system is supposed to perform passive document splitting here. Based on the passive document splitting, system is supposed to derive the profit center automatically from the invoice that you are trying to clear. To see that passive document splitting, you need to simulate general ledger. Click on simulate general ledger. When you click on simulate general ledger, you will see profit center is automatically updated for both bank account and the accounts payable account, even though nowhere we have mentioned profit center. Now to understand how did system get the profit center, go to expert mode on the screen. If you click on this expert mode, you will understand point here. Line item number 1, you need to see what line items are there in your entry. First, line item number 1, this is your line item sequence here. Line item number 1 is HDFC bank account. HDFC bank account, it is telling you split according to base row. Split according to base row, which means document splitting is happening for bank account. In short, bank account is receiving the line item based on the base row. Now there is an expansion here. There is an expansion here. If you expand this bank account, now it is telling you GL account is 131 all zeros 2, which is bank account. This bank account is currently updated with profit center 9PBI01. This profit center is updated based on the base line item 0002. Line item number 0002 is here, and this is also not direct. If you have given manual input, this will be directly updated as base line item like this. No expansion button will be here. Now here is also an expansion button. If I expand this, I am able to see inheritance via clearing. This inheritance via clearing is basically the passive document splitting. System is getting profit center from the invoice document. Now here it is clearly telling you line item number 2, which is your vendor account, received the profit center based on inheritance via clearing from company code 9PBI, document number 19 all zeros 2, fiscal year 2023, line item number 1. Line item number 1. If you see this 19 all zeros 2, if I go back to the vendor line item, this is my company code 9PBI, this is my document number. If I display this document, in this document, this is the line item number 1. Company code, document, item number 1. This is how system has arrived at the profit center. This is nothing but your passive document splitting. This is the basic understanding about your passive document splitting when it comes to a payment document. Now let me continue. And another point that you have to remember while processing the payment. Now here you are making a payment. When you are making the payment, always see it from your company code currency plus additional currencies that you are using for your company code. According to BMW, we are working with two currencies. One is local currency, second one is a group currency. Now, if I add another currency here, let's say currently what I'm able to see is only local currency. Let me go to this change layout. Now in the change layout, let us verify if you have amount in group currency. Freely definable currency 1 to 8. These are not the group currencies, because if you see out of 10 currencies, it is giving you from 1 to 8. 1 2 is always local currency group currency or company code currency group currency, and then freely definable currencies are apart from local currency group currency. Now there is nothing called amount in local currency 2 here, because amount in local currency 2 is showing separately here. In short, this payment is released for 26,000 in INR currency. If I go to switch currency, if I select dollar, continue, dollar is 313.25. Now if I go back to the vendor line item report, now I need to make sure even when I look at my vendor line item report, I have to strictly see my outstanding in local currency plus outstanding in group currency. Now to add outstanding in group currency, go to change layout and amount in document currency I don't want. Let me put these two currencies also. Where is amount? So I will add these two here. amount in document currency. After that, I need amount in local currency too, and I also need local currency too. I will add these two here. Now let me copy. I will click on save this layout. Okay. I'll put my layout, save. Okay, this is my layout. Now if I scroll right a little, now I am able to see, let me put total for this. I'll add this also into my layout. Now if I see this, outstanding in document currency, transaction currency is 26,000, outstanding in local currency is 26,000, outstanding in dollar is 313.25. Now your local currency is always the same, because according to us 26,000 is the invoice value, and according to us we are processing the payment for 26,000. Now at the time of your invoice processing, your exchange rate may be different. According to invoice processing exchange rate, your dollar outstanding was 313.25, but due to different reasons, by the time you release the payment, exchange rate may fluctuate. It may went up or it may come down. So depending on the situation, dollar amount may be different at the time of a payment. In case if the dollar amount is different at the time of a payment, system will not balance the amount at both levels. System will not balance the amount at both level. It will give you exchange rate differences. If there is any difference in exchange rate at the group currency level, in short, at the dollar level, if there is any mismatch, it will give you exchange rate differences during the payment transaction, which means while processing the actual payment entry, if system finds or if system detected any change in the exchange rate, it is going to trigger exchange rate differences. This exchange rate difference is of two types. One is realized exchange rate difference, other one is unrealized exchange rate difference. If you are performing the actual payment, it is called as realized exchange rate differences. If you are performing month-end activity to see what is the P&L impact, then that is your unrealized exchange rate difference. Now here we are actually making the payment. During your actual payment, it is called as realized exchange rate differences. Now in this realized, there are two possibilities. One is loss, the other one is gain. If your dollar exchange rate has increased, you will end up paying more. If you are paying more than what you are supposed to pay, you are going to get a loss. If you are paying less than what you are supposed to pay, you are going to get a gain. In short, realized exchange loss, realized exchange gain. So this realized exchange loss and gain also you have to understand why system is bringing, how system is calculating this exchange loss and gains. Okay, currently there is no loss, there is no gain, because during the payment also 313.25 is the dollar amount, and during the invoice also it is the same. If this is the situation, there is no difference in the currency. In this case, it is fine, you are good to go. Go to the payment document, come back from the simulation, and whenever you see this, when you get a message at the bottom, it is telling you automatically created line items will be deleted. When system is telling automatically created line items will be deleted, this means whatever the line item system has brought automatically during the simulation. During our data entry, we have given only vendor account. Sorry, we have given only bank account. Your vendor account is coming automatically based on the invoice selection. Whatever the invoices that you have selected, based on the selection, system is bringing vendor line item. That is a automatically created line item. To bring it again, you just need to simulate once again. Go to document, click on simulate. Your vendor line item will appear again. At the bottom, debit 26,000, credit 26,000. Your account balance at transaction level is becoming zero, because your accounting equation debit must be equivalent to credit. 26 on debit, 26 on credit is 0. number of line items in the single debit, single credit. If this is fine, you can proceed to save. Okay, now here what I'll do, yeah, I'll put payment for invoice. Click on save. Now my first transaction, my first entry is processed, which is your payment against invoice. This is standard payment or payment against invoice. Now once the payment is processed for your invoice, after the payment, if I go to the vendor invoice outstanding report, if I click on refresh, I'm not supposed to see any outstanding here. It is giving you no items selected. Enter. Once the payments are processed, open item list to become 0 and cleared item list to appear. Now cleared item list, I have to be very specific now because there may be other vendor also. I want to see cleared items of Dinesh stores only. Put your respective vendor. Once the invoice and payment is processed, always run the reports based on the vendor account in which your entries are processed. If you randomly run for all the vendors, it is very difficult to understand. Once you are clear with the concept, you can play with the system the way you want. Click on execute. In the cleared item, this is how I am able to see. Green indicator represents transactions are cleared. Transactions cleared represents transaction is settled. Transaction cleared represents transaction settled. Now, if I come right side here, for any payment document, you will find clearing document as payment document here. Clearing document as payment document. Based on the clearing document, you are going to identify which payment document is settled, which invoices, or your invoice is settled with which payment document. Now, after this, if you display the invoice document 19 series, I am going to identify what is invoice, what is payment, always based on the document type only. You cannot go based on the amount. Negative is invoice, positive payment. That is wrong approach. Always go based on the document type. If it is KR, vendor invoice. If it is KZ, vendor payment. After processing the payment, select the invoice, click on display. If you click on display the vendor invoice, if it is already paid, you will find two more columns getting added. Clearing. This is your clearing date, in short the payment date. This is clearing document, in short payment document. Okay, by looking at the invoice document, how do you identify whether the invoice is paid or unpaid? Based on the invoice line item. If you look at the invoice line item for the vendor account, if clearing date, clearing document is updated, this invoice is cleared, is no longer outstanding, is no longer open. When it is cleared and what is it clearing document number will be updated here. If you double click on this payment document number or clearing document number, it will display this document. You do not have to open FB03 and all. Straight away you can double click here. Now if you see, let me double click on 15 all zeros 2. It will take me inside the payment document. It is taking me inside the payment document. From this payment document, I want to know what invoices are settled with this payment document. By looking at this, I am able to see, okay, HDFC bank account is credited with 26,000. Dinesh stores is credited with 26,000. Sorry, debited with 26. Now this document is only telling me that it is a payment entry for 26,000. How do I know, or how do you know what is the invoice that is settled with this payment? It may be for single invoice, it may be for multiple invoices. How do you identify? To identify the invoice transactions based on the payment transaction, on the payment document, go to environment on the top. On the payment document, go to environment on the top. You will find an icon called payment usage here. You will find an icon called payment usage. Click on payment usage. If you click on payment usage, it will display the items that are settled in the payment document. In short, how this payment is used. This payment 15 is used for invoice number 19 all zeros 2. You have to navigate, understand all these points, because not because you are going to it's not that you are not an end user, you will ignore this. That's a big mistake most of the consultants will do. Tomorrow you are supposed to train your user, you are supposed to prepare the manual and all. In your training, in your manual, you have to cover all these points. Tomorrow if your user is asking, how do I know this payment is settled or is cleared against what invoice, you cannot say I do not know, because I created invoice in SAP, I posted payment in SAP. Now tell me which payment is settled, which invoice, or what invoices are settled against what payment. If your client, if your user is unable to extract, prepare this information, simply they will create a ticket, they will create an incident to the consultant. As a consultant, you have to produce the information and then give it to them. You cannot say that it is not available in SAP, then it will be taken in a different way. Always try to understand what are the ways that you can record the entry and how do you retrieve the entry. That is where you have to understand more and more. Now this is what is your report. If I come back to the main report again, this is our main report. Now next point that we have to understand here is the tables related to vendor.
Sir, if it is related to check, how you will find when it will be paid that amount?
That I'll show in the next transactions where I'll process the practical check payment.
Okay.
Okay. Now next one, tables related to vendor transactions. So far we have seen tables related to accounting document. Okay, so far we have seen tables related to accounting document. Now accounting document tables, so far what we have seen was BKPF, BSEC, Fagel Flexa, and then AC Doka. These are the tables that we were talking about. Accounting document related table. When you're talking about accounting document related tables, let me put here accounting document tables. Okay, so when somebody is asking you, or when you want to see specifically vendor related transaction, there are different tables which will store your vendor entries. Now let us see vendor entry related table. To see any table, as we all know, SE16N. Now BS is the standard. BS is the standard, and you're talking about vendor. For vendor, account type is K. So BS is a standard. Based on the account type, you are going to put at the last K. And you have two indicators. One is A and one is I. I'll go in the sequence. I'll put A. So in short, it has become BSAK. When I put BSAK, it is telling you cleared items. It is talking about cleared item. Now, if you go to vendor line item report, if I go back to the vendor line item report, in vendor line item report, there are three statuses in short. One is open item, the other one is cleared item. Similarly, open items are stored in a different table, cleared items are stored in a different table. You don't have any specific table for all item for vendor. All item means accounting document. Right? All item means you have to go to accounting document. If you want specifically open item in a vendor account, you have a dedicated table. If you want a cleared item in a vendor account, you have a dedicated table. Always try to look at the screen in the easiest way, whatever the way that you feel that you are getting connected to it. In the similar way, you try to understand the things. No rule that you have to understand with the technical names, logics and all, not required. End of the day, if you are sitting in front of the system, if you are given a scenario requirement, make sure you are able to understand and you are able to extract, you are able to proceed further with confidence without depending on anybody. So to meet that, whatever the way you feel is easier, adopt that way. Whether it is simple, silly, it is fine. End of the day, result matters when you're working as a consultant. Nobody will see your effort, everybody will see the result. Now here BSAK, this is your cleared item. To pull the any data from the table, you should always pass the input. Input is your company code. We know that 9PBI is our company code. Supplier, because I wanted to see specifically to a particular supplier. If I leave it blank, it will get the data from all the vendors, which I do not want. What is our supplier? 5000 4006. Copy this supplier code, come here, put it in the supplier, this one, enter, and click on execute. If I click on execute, let's see what information system will show. It is giving you two records. This is company code, supplier code, this is clearing date, clearing document, assignment. Document numbers are coming here. And it is giving document date, posting date, entered on, currency, reference, document type, posting key, debit credit indicator. Now, very frequently on a daily basis, I would say, you will be working with this table. Now, most of the times we will get confused, we will get surprised why people are asking us tables in the interview. Whenever you attend interviews, people will be asking you to tell, oh, can you tell me the tables of vendor or tables of XYZ functionality. Now, the reason why people will ask you about a table is if you really work as a FICO consultant even for one day. If you work as a FICO consultant even for one day, your day will not get closed without looking at a single table. At least or minimum a single table you will be viewing, verifying as a consultant on a daily basis. This is standard common practice for every consultant. Now, if you are telling that we are an experienced FICO consultant, at least some standard basic tables you have to remember. No rule that you need to know, you need to remember all the tables, but at least when you are working, there is no rule that you have to remember the table, but basic fundamental point. When you are going to attend any interview, everybody will prepare for the interview. We will not just like that go and attend the interview casually. We will have our preparation for the interview. As part of your interview preparation, make sure you revise, you try to remember the important tables. Revise and try to remember important tables alone. That is the reason you will be questioned about tables in the interview. Don't get confused why they are asking tables. Because as a consultant, instead of a transaction code, you will be working more on the tables. You are not going to generate the data from report. Instead, you will generate the data from table. If there is a transaction, if there is a report through which you can see the data, why will you take that data from the report? You will straight away ask your end user, go to this particular transaction code, pull the data, you will get whatever you want. This is what I will do as a consultant. Same thing you will do as a consultant. If there is something which you can get it from a report, you will ask end user to take the data from report. When the data cannot be taken from report due to large size information or due to huge number of records, due to non-availability of the exact report, as a consultant you will pull the data from table. That is where you will be using the table here. If there is a standard report, you will ask user to use the report, get the data. Otherwise, as a consultant, you will pull the data from table. Now here, BSAK is for vendor cleared items. I will come here, I'll put BSAK. This I'll put vendor cleared items. And the other one is same thing. BSK is common. BS is a standard for any accounting table, any accounting document table, either whatever you call it. BS will be common, and then at the last, it is based on the account type. If you want vendor, Vendor is identified by account type K, I am putting K. If it is cleared item, A. If it is open item, I. If it is open item, I. Now let me put BSIK table here. This is your BSAK. I'll come back. Let me put BSIK. When you put BSIK, it is your secondary index for supplier. In short, this is your open item. If I put company code 9PBI and if I put supplier, before I run this table, let me go to the vendor line item report. In vendor line item report, if I select open item, if I click on execute, currently there is no open item selected. In short, as on today, there is nothing outstanding in vendor account. When report says there is no outstanding, table also should show there is no outstanding. There is no outstanding in the report, no data. There is no outstanding in table also, no data. Let me click on execute. I'm not expecting any data here. We are not expecting any data. At the bottom left, you can see no values found. Now your report is dependent on table. Table is not dependent on report. It's the other way around. Right? Report is getting the data from table. Your report is getting the data from table, which means when you run FBL1N, system is showing either open item or cleared item based on the table BSIK and BSAK. Based on BSIK, BSAK table, system is displaying what is open, what is cleared. Now, when you come back to the table, you should always understand how to read the table and how do you understand it. Now, currently in the open item, there is nothing. Next thing, what I'll do is, let me try to record one open item and then see if BSIK will display any open transaction. Now, from here onwards, we have to be a little careful. When I say little careful, now BSIK is equal to vendor open items. Other tables we will add as we run different scenarios. I will be adding the different table. For time being, you need to remember these tables alone. Remember, when somebody is asking you vendor tables, don't talk about BKPF, BSEG and all. They are not vendor tables. They are accounting document tables. This is your vendor transactions. Here, if I go up, something we listed a type of payment, and we were talking about payment against invoice, partial payment, residual payment, on account payment, down payment, PDC payment. Now, one common point here is, in order to make any payment, you need an invoice. Common point here is, in order to make any payment, you need an invoice. Now, you have to be a little conscious, careful here. Now, our intention is to understand the scenario. Our intention is to understand the scenario. To understand the scenario, you are not supposed to focus on data entry. Another mistake most of the people will do here. When I'm talking about to understand the scenario, do not do the data entry. Don't try to create invoice every time. During the invoice processing time, we understood what is invoice, how invoice is processed. Because in any project, your invoices are processed by end user. As a consultant, you are not going to create invoice on a daily basis. How invoice is created, if you are aware, it is fine. But to run this scenario, you are not supposed to create invoice every time. Don't practice data entry. Don't practice data entry. Instead, try to understand the concept scenario for which you need a transaction. That's it. See it from a transaction point of view. You need an open invoice in order to perform your payment testing. For that, what I'll do, I will go to vendor line item report. Be very careful here. I am going to clear the item. I know that there is an already one invoice processed for 26,000. I need one more invoice to test second payment. For that, what I'll do, I will copy the existing invoice document which is already created. Click on copy. Okay, copy the existing invoice which is already created. Next, go to SAP screen. You can use any transaction code, either F-02 or FB01, any T code you can use. On any transaction code, some transactions will directly display an option called post with reference. There is an option called post with reference. If you are able to see it directly on the screen, it is fine. Sometimes if it is not showing, go to F-43. On F-43 also you can see post with reference. Let's say if I go to FB60. If I go to FB60, here also I am able to see post with reference. In case on any screen, if you don't find post with reference directly on the screen, now here if you see on on FB60, we are not able to see post with reference directly. In that case, click on go to and then use post with reference. Okay, post with reference is nothing but copying the transaction from an existing transaction. The way you are creating GL account by copying, the way you are creating any master data, cost center, profit center by copying the existing, in the similar way you can copy a transaction. In the similar way you can copy a transaction, or you can also use a direct transaction code for this FBR2. You can also use a direct transaction called FBR2. If I put FBR2, directly it will take you to post document by copying existing document. This is nothing but post a document with a reference. Reference means existing document. Put the existing document, company code, fiscal year. Now, as you know, SAP is going to identify document based on three key unique field. One is your document number, two is company code, three is fiscal year. With the combination of document number, company code, fiscal year, in the same sequence, SAP will identify the transaction. Put this, you don't have to put any checkbox here. We don't use any checkbox even in the real time. Don't use it here. Only for selected scenarios we will use, otherwise not required. Just press enter. When you press enter, every information is getting copied and it is editable except two fields. One is your company code, second one is your currency. These two cannot be edited, and down below posting key cannot be edited. These points you need to make a note somewhere. Tomorrow somebody might ask you, while posting a transaction with post with clearing, what information cannot be changed. Somebody might ask you in your interview, while doing a post with reference transaction, what information can be changed, what information cannot be changed. You cannot say we can change everything. You can see here, company code cannot be changed, currency cannot be changed, posting key cannot be changed. You have to understand and then practically answer. Now these kind of questions will look very simple, but unless you work, you cannot answer. Unless you work, unless you practice properly, not possible to answer. You will answer, but it will be a attempt only, maybe right, may not be wrong. Now here I'll put the same information everywhere, but what I'll do, I'll try to change some information. This I'll 10, purchase of utility items, it is fine, enter. And I think connection is lost. Refresh. Reconnect. Okay. Okay, you can see here the next screen has arrived. Here also same thing, you can change everything except posting key. GL account I can change, vendor account I can change, but posting keys cannot be changed. I will change amount from 26,000 to let's say 12,000. I'll put 12,000 here and I'll remove this. I'll press enter. When I press enter, it is giving a message, you changed INR 26 to 12, dollar is not the same. Remove the dollar amount, press enter, it will convert automatically. And then it is giving you directly the simulation screen. On the simulation screen, double click on second line item. You have to do this only if you wanted to change the amount. Otherwise, straight away you can post it. Okay, I'll click on overview. Now, if you see 12,000 to 12,000. On the simulation screen, now it is 12,000 to 12,000. Let me click on post. I had to edit because I have edited amount. Otherwise, I can simply copy paste just in 1 second or just in 5 seconds. My invoice is ready. So I can focus only on my payment. Don't try to create invoice. Don't think which vendor I will take, which GL I will take, what amount I will take, what profit center I will take. Don't think that way. It is irrelevant, not at all required for us. You understood how invoice is processed, that is more than enough. Then to understand the payment process, you need one invoice. All you need is one open invoice, some outstanding amount to be processed. Bring that amount by copying existing invoice document and then start thinking about payment. Don't think about invoice. That is where we will be out of the track. We will miss out on the concept. Now 12,000 is what we processed. Now, according to our understanding, according to our logic, if I go back to the vendor line item, if I select open invoice, we are expecting 12,000 outstanding. Click on execute. If I click execute, you are able to see 12,000 outstanding on the screen. This is 12,000 outstanding. Now, outstanding invoice, which means open invoices, are part of which table? They are part of BSIK. If you come to BSIK table, earlier there was no outstanding, no data in table. Now there is an outstanding of 12,000. BSIK table to show one open invoice of 12,000. If you see, BSIK table is giving you one document number 19 all zeros 3. Amount, if you go right side, you will see it as 12,000. This is the outstanding amount. And if I go back, invoice number 19 all zeros 3, currently it is not cleared. How I am telling that this is not clear? Because in my BSIK table, clearing a document, clearing date is blank. If the document clearing information is blank, it is open. If document clearing information is updated, it is cleared. Okay, now come back. This is your payment. Again, I will do the same payment, standard payment, one more time, so that you are thorough with the standard payment. Then in the next session, we will complete this payment. But before we understand this, first you have to be thorough with how standard payment is made. I will try to process the payment entry /n F-53. Now I will record it on same day. Reference payment for invoice, house bank account ID, bank account 12,000, value date, text, do not input profit center, reason being system will perform passive document splitting here. If you select none and if you click on process open item, let's see, straight away it is giving all the information. Now we are calling our payment as payment against invoice or standard payment. We are calling standard payment because you are using a tab called standard. We are using a standard tab, that is why we call it as a standard payment or payment against invoice. Select your invoice document 12,000, amount assigned, amount entered, both are matching, nothing is in not assigned, nothing is in difference posting. Straight away go to document, click on simulate. Okay, on the simulation, remember the accounting entry. These accounting entries you will be asked in your interview. Second point, go to document, simulate general ledger. Make sure you will understand that profit center is getting derived automatically based on document splitting functionality. Which is splitting? passive document splitting. To this extent, you remember, in the upcoming sessions, we will complicate scenarios, we will see practically. By taking multiple line items in invoice with different profit centers, I will show how system is splitting your payment. This is the basic example of your splitting. You have different scenarios in it. But before we understand the different scenarios, these are the basic fundamentals you have to know. If you are clear here, everything will be very easy to understand. If we are confused here, things will get complicated. You will get unnecessary confusions. Click on save here. Okay. Now this is another point. After this, immediately you have to understand, if I run the report of my vendor line item, there should be nothing outstanding. It is giving no item selected. Immediately, if I go to table BSIK table is related to vendor open item. You have made the payment. If I run the report, BSIK should show nothing. No data in BSIK, which is fine. If I see the cleared item, which is BSAK, click on execute. My mistake, I have to put company code and then vendor number. These two are mandatory. 4 items. Based on the clearing document, you are going to identify what is payment and which invoices or what entries are settled in it. Now, after doing these two things, so you have to understand there is something called aging report. Now, I'll show standard aging report, which normally we use ID, CN, AR. I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, this is your AR aging report, which is standard transaction code, AR aging report. Okay, this is SAP standard report. T code is IDCNAR. This is country specific China based report. I'll put vendor aging report standard. Normally we will create a custom report for aging. If you want to use a standard report, this will meet your any client's requirement. IDCNAR. Okay, this is the transaction code. This is the T code to see the aging report for your vendor. Now what I will do here, I'll come here, I'll put company code 9PBI, enter. I'll put vendor account, open the drop down. Sorry, this is AR I have given. For vendor it is AP, IDCN AP. Here also AP. Okay. AR is for customer aging, AP is for vendor aging. Simple to remember. Even tomorrow somebody is asking you, you can tell the same report, same transaction code. Put your company code 9PBI and supplier account. Let us be very specific to select our own supplier which we processed entries now. I will select Dinesh store. Now you have to select the aging brackets. So what I'll do, I'll select 10 days, 20 days, 30 days. Every company will have a aging bucket or aging bracket for their reporting purpose. Maybe 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, 210 days, 250 days, likewise. Accordingly, they will put it. Either day wise, you can also pull quarterly, 3 months, and then you can put 3 years report also. Click on execute here. If I click on execute, it is showing nothing because on first there is nothing outstanding. But there is an icon called include cleared item. So to see include cleared item, or what I'll do, I'll change the date. I'll change date to 31st October because payment is processed on 1st November. If I see as on 30th October, if you see backdated date, system is allowing you to enable include cleared item. All these small points you have to understand, you have to make a note of it when you're practicing, especially because these minute points is what going to help you a lot in your project. If I click on execute, I am able to see the aging now. You are able to see the aging. Now what you do is you just collapse all these things. In short, this is all called here called as your subtotal. As you know, this is the icon for subtotal. During the document splitting, so many times we talked about total, subtotal at profit center level. The moment you talk about subtotal, either you can go here, you have an icon called subtotal on off. If I click on subtotal off, directly it has removed all the subtotals off. What I did, I simply clicked on subtotal off. Now this is the profit center supplier name, this is the supplier recon account, this is the GL account number, total open item 38,000. How do I ensure that the total open item is 38,000? Go to the vendor line item report. In vendor line item report, make sure the report date of your aging, your line item report are the same. I executed aging report on 31st October 2023. I am executing vendor line item report also on 31st October 2023. Let me run the report. Point number 1, look at the total outstanding 38,000. Point number 1, total outstanding is 38,000 and here total open item should be 38,000. This is the first point of verification. When you are generating the report, especially if a consultant is working on reporting, if a consultant is sharing the report, verifying the report, you have to be very careful. Don't just like that see that report is giving output, then you are doing a big mistake. You may end up getting into a very uncomfortable, very tricky situations where the data that you have shared is not validated or is inaccurate. Your client may give us left and right, because sometimes what users will do, they will feel that the data is given by the consultant, it is up to the mark. They will feel that it's 100% correct, no doubt in it, because I got it from consultant. But reality, you know, and I know. So that is why whenever you are sharing any report data to the user or to your client, make sure you verify it once and twice before you share it. First point, this open item count is matching with here and here. This is first level verification. Now if your vendor line items are more, normally aging report is executed for all the vendors in one go. This vendor line item report for all vendors in one go cannot be executed because of huge number. What you do, vendor line item browser T code is FBL1H. FBL1H is your vendor line item browser. On this report, give your company code, leave the suppliers blank and put the same open item key date 31/10, because even if you have n number of records, this will give you within seconds, you will get the output on this report. Click on execute. And you must know how do you verify that the number is correct, because if the report logics are not working as expected, number will be wrong. On the total, you will get the total of all the suppliers. If you have 1000 vendors, you will get 1000 records like this. Total 1000 vendor outstanding will be displayed in the yellow column on the top. 38,000 is outstanding. If you go to aging report, your aging is also showing 38,000 here. This is the first point. If the outstanding open item is matching, only then go and check the other columns. Otherwise, don't check. Just ignore it. Because the main number is not matching, there is no point of verifying other columns. If the total outstanding is matching, only then go and verify other columns. If it is not matching, just ignore it. Just ignore it because the number is not matching. Something went wrong. First level, you have to understand where to validate. After that, verify what else we are going to check. Next one, not due currently is 0, which means everything is overdue. Now overdue less than 11 days, nothing. and 11 to 20 days you have to pay 38,000. While making the payment today, you have seen days in arrears as a 17 days. If I see here, we calculated days in arrears and we arrived at a number called 17, which means this is 17 days overdue. 17 days overdue. This is 17 days is coming between 10 to 20 days bucket. According to the report, this is falling under 11 to 20 days. That is why it is under 11 to 20 days. What if I change the bucket? If I put this here, let's say 10 days, or I'll put under 30 days, and then here I'll put 60 days, and here I'll put 90 days, and then I'll put 120 days. This I don't want. I don't want this. I only need this many. I only need 1, 2, 3, 4 buckets. If I click on execute, now 38,000 should be a part of 30 days bucket. Let me run the report to see where it will show now. Now it is giving. Now I'll switch off this one. Now you can see not due is 0 because everything is overdue. Due within 31 days is 38,000. Out of total open items, what percentage is due within 31 days is your 100%. Okay, percentage from your open item. And this is most commonly used aging report for your accounts payable for your vendor. When somebody is asking, have you worked on aging report? Specifically, if you get any question, tell that you were, but you were using SAP standard aging report IDCNAP. You're working on, tell that your client was using standard aging report IDCNAP. Closed, no question asked any further, because you are telling that this is the standard aging report that you are using in your client. If your client is using standard report, no way you will do a customized report. Now this report is not invoice based. This report is profit center. This report is profit center based. You can see the differentiation at profit center level. If you have 3 profit centers, at every profit center it will give you the breakup. Now this 38,000 contains several invoices. To get the breakup of this 38,000, double click on this line item. If you double click on the line item, it will take you to the transactions that are inside it. For these transactions, there is no aging. For these transactions, there is no aging. In short, if your requirement is to get invoice wise aging, then this is not the ideal report. This is profit center wise aging. If you want invoice wise aging, you have to sit with your technical consultant, your ABAP consultant, tell them the logic, tell them that currently this report is giving profit center wise aging. We want a transaction wise aging. He will go, he will find some enhancement spot, and then he will write his code to give the data based on the invoice number. This is your aging report, and you have seen how this report is looking like. Now why I am showing the aging report now, because we are processing little entries now, one invoice, one payment. With the single or limited transaction, when you are able to look at the report, slowly you will get used to the screen, what data is coming, what you are posting, because going forward we will be processing different type of invoices, different type of scenarios with multiple vendors, and all reports will be executed at company code level. I will be showing reports for multiple company codes, multiple invoices, multiple vendors in one go, making sure that we will be able to understand at what level we are generating the report, what points we need to consider, how we have to validate the figure. Now all these points is what you have to understand when you are working with any project, with any client. Right? The basic data entry is anyways standard. Even if I show or I do not show, I know you will all practice. But what you exactly is supposed to know is what you have to know. The same way, whatever we are doing, I want you to practice at least 2 to 3 times. Only then you will start understanding the points. Right? So this is your AP aging report, in short, vendor aging report. And this aging report is a month-end report. At the end of every month, every client will pull this aging report to see how their payables are lying under, which means what is the aging of your payable, your liability. If your aging is, now there is one more thing called DPO. Any idea what is DPO? Anybody?
Days payable outstanding.
No, this is another report, not mandatory. Most of the clients they prepare this manually, but in case if your client wants DPO DPO report, first of all you need to understand what is DPO report. Days payable outstanding. When you say days payable outstanding, you have to see how this days payable outstanding is prepared. For this there is a standard formula. Anybody know the formula for this? Find out and then let me know the formula tomorrow. And let's see if anybody can figure it out, else I'll tell you tomorrow. What is the formula or how DPO is calculated? When you're talking about you have experience, you worked on accounts payable, try to add these kind of points in your resume, or not in resume, but at least when you're telling, talk these kind of points, which will give you a different impact to the other person. Right? So what we have done now, we've created an invoice. We have seen how to see the vendor outstanding report, open item, cleared item, how to check the data from the vendor open item table, vendor outstanding table, sorry, vendor cleared table. We understood how payment is processed, and we understood how the arrears days are getting calculated, overdue, undue, not due, and how splitting is working, passive document splitting. And we also understood how your vendor aging report is executed using the standard aging report. These points you practice today, make sure you are able to understand what is happening in AP. Going forward, whatever we did today will be the repeated activity for any scenario in accounts payable. Whatever you do in accounts payable, whatever we did today is a repeated activity. You just pause play, same thing, that's it. Create an invoice. In order to do anything in vendor, you need an invoice. We understood how invoice is created, how invoice is copied, post with reference. Next, payment. To do a payment, same logic. What is your outstanding, what is the invoice date, what is the due date, from where you are paying, and all. Same way to create the payment. After the payment, the way you look at the report, the same. The way you generate the table, same. BSIK, BSAK, the way you look at the aging report, it is the same. Same activities will be repeated with different scenarios. How scenarios are coming, and each scenario how we are able to understand, slowly we have to pay attention. Practically, these are the areas, these are the points that you will be working in any project. Understand and practice the same thing as it is, so that there is no way that you will find it difficult anytime. You will find it difficult now only. Today only it is difficult. Going forward, it's all simple. You will not find anything difficult tricky going forward, because we are starting from the difficult level. We'll be going to the easy level. Right? Any questions so far, Vinod?
Sir, after the making single payment, how we are sending to the bank this payment things? Individually you are
This is
sending
the
or bulk we are
upcoming
sending?
session. Yes, we talked only about the payment document. How the payment is made, if it is check, if it is bank, it will be the upcoming session.
Okay, okay, sir.
Yeah. I'll practically create the scenarios and then show you on the system, and then I'll explain you the process flow. Okay. Yeah. Rajendra, Sandeep,
Sir, am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, what is the difference between profit center wise aging and invoice wise aging? That part I didn't understand.
Invoice based aging means it is at a document level. Now, whatever the aging that we have seen is the total outstanding is profit center level. Currently, we have created two invoices, correct?
Okay.
Okay. Now, here the aging is coming as a single line. It is showing 38,000. It is giving aging for 38,000. If you look at vendor outstanding
Okay.
report for this 38,000, this is not a single transaction. Select this
Yeah. Okay.
line item report.
Yes. Yes. Collection of multiple consolidation of
Okay,
multiple transactions.
right. This is your, if you are getting, because each invoice may have different due date and all, right?
Yes.
So that is your invoice wise aging. This is your profit center wise aging or vendor wise aging. Because aging report is generated with different parameters based on the purpose that they are looking for.
Okay. Sir, invoice wise raising in the sense what would be the input of that report, or what does it
Same
actually
thing,
mean?
same thing.
I understood the difference.
Yeah, same thing. In the report, you have to include that functionality, which the above consultant will enable it. By default, it is clubbing at profit center level, displaying profit center wise. If you want invoice wise,
Okay.
we need to discuss with the technical above consultant, tell them that, then he will put the logic to show invoice wise output.
No, sir, I didn't understand the actual meaning of invoice wise. In the sense, I understood that in profit center wise, in the sense, it's clubbing all the invoices which are recorded at the profit center. So that I understood.
Hmm.
Uh, Invoice wise, in
How,
the sense,
how
because
many
that
invoices
is
are there
something
in the
I
vendor
didn't
line item
understand.
currently? Here, how many line
Total
items
two
you have?
invoices,
Now here, how many you are getting?
one line item.
Invoice wise means if there are two invoices, your aging will show two lines. That is your invoice wise.
Okay. Okay. The splitting is something considered as
Hmm.
invoice wise.
Correct. You see, you don't find the
Okay.
invoice
Thank you,
number
sir.
here.
Thanks. No, no, no. We are not finding directly. The clubbing amount is showing as at
Correct.
profit center level.
Correct. Okay. Tunde?
Yes, Ajay. Earlier on in the class, you had mentioned FTM and PDC, but I didn't catch what the FTM meant.
FTM means for the month, YTD means year to date.
Okay. And what is the PDC payment? What does
Post
that
dated payment. If you
post?
are
Okay.
releasing the payment now for future effective date, that is your PDC.
Okay. Thank you.
FTM means for the month, YTD means year to date. This I'll show practically. Once we post different entries, I'll show. I'm not adding so many in one go to not to create confusion.
Right. And also in one of your classes, you said that you were, I think it's the AP topic list. You have said that you're going to show us a sample of a configuration document.
That, yeah, I'll share it. I'll show it.
Okay.
Yeah. Ajoy?
Sir, in F-53 transaction code, can we put the default value date in the value date field? Means according to the posting date, here in this scenario we have posted 1st November date. Uh, is this date is automatically filled up in the value date field? Is there any? Can we configure that? Means we have
No,
to
in that
note the
case
manual input in the value date field. Yes.
you have to put either a substitution, you have to write a
Okay.
substitution.
Through substitution, we can maintain that default value date field, right? based on
Correct.
the posting date. Am I right, sir?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And sir, you have put that document date is 1st November, uh, as posting date is also 1st November. So document date, what document date we have put in the F-53 means billing document date
No, no, no.
or
F-53
any
is
date.
the today's date only.
Hmm. Document date means today's date, payment date, right?
To- Payment date. If you are making payment today, your document date, posting date will be today only.
Okay, same date, both the field, right? We have to put
Correct.
same date.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And sir, in table level, BSIK is only showing the open item level. There is, I have seen that only one line item. But whenever we run the BSAK table, that is a cleared item for vendor transaction, the line item is appear here. Means for payment document, right?
Correct.
Always it is showing two documents.
Invoice and
Okay,
payment both will appear in cleared documents.
clear document.
Yeah.
Acha, acha. Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Rajendra, if you're talking, I cannot hear you, Rajendra. Nagavina.
Hello, Ajay. Yesterday I was trying with the vendor master with the migrate data, but I'm not able to get which template to use in that.
You search with the supplier.
I did with that, but it's not giving me to download the template. It's giving in a different way. So can you please check and show me?
Now it will take time to load that. I'll put a screenshot in the group which template you have to use for supplier master data.
When I used that, the three were showing one supplier, one with the open item, one with the something. But I tried with the supplier. It
Only
is giving
supplier without open item and all. So there should be nothing in the dependency. That one you have to
that,
take.
that only I tried. It is not giving me to download the template. It's only giving upload directly.
Okay, I will check and then tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Kurva.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Uh, you are talking realize and realize. Can you explain one more time, sir?
That I'll explain in the next session with practical example. I'll change the exchange rate, then I'll show you with the figure how system is calculating, how we are understanding it.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. That we have not, I just explained that during the payment you will get differences if there is a change in the exchange rate. In the tomorrow's session, I will process the payment with different other criterias.
okay, okay.
Okay, yeah. Abhi?
Hi sir, good evening sir. Sir, we are running some transactions like F-43, F-53, some other transactions like FBR2. Like in real time, we don't run all these transactions, right, sir? Just
Correct.
some case.
FBR2 is only for invoice and normal JP postings, not for the payment and all. Clearing documents cannot be copied. Non-clearing documents are only used for FBR2.
Sir, the end users will regularly use FBR2 or directly they will post from like
If it is
F-43.
exactly the same entry, they will use FBR2.
Okay, there
They
is
will
a
use,
possibility to use. Yes, sir.
yes, it is used by the users.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank
Hello.
you. Sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, Rajendra.
Yes, sir. I have a question. In BSIK table, we found that there are two fields like clearing document number and clearing document date, right? So after
Hmm.
clearing the 12,000 payment, why it is not reflecting in the same table, sir, under the particular column?
Now the two tables BSIK, BSAK, if you see the vendor
Right.
line item report, either it will show in open item or it will show in cleared item. The one
Correct.
transaction cannot be part of both. Agree?
Yes.
In the similar way, when you go to the table, Either it is in open item or it is in cleared item. It can never be in both tables. If it is not paid, if it is not cleared, it will be part of BSIK table as open item. The moment it is paid or it is cleared, it will be deleted from the BSIK, it will be added in BSIK.
Okay, sir, meaning that only in a BSIK table we can see whatever documents are open for the payment.
Correct.
Okay, but still there is field sir clearing document as you shown. That's why I have question, nothing else.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is blank. If that is blank, it will be part of BSIK. If that is updated, it will go to BSIK.
Okay.
Okay.
Means in a single line item we can check it that in a BSIK table also document is clear and it is updated in BSIK table.
Right. Correct. You're right.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Hello? Hello?
Divyanjali. Yeah. Please raise your hand. I'll call out your name. Divyanjali.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have few doubts in yesterday's class, I mean day before yesterday. Sir, while creating master data, you said that the responsibility of consultant uh, will be there in a hypercare period, right? What does it mean hypercare period and how much time it will be there?
When you talk about hypercare, let's say we are working in a project and the project has gone live. Now you know what is project go live, right? The day that
Yes.
you hand over system to the client is called as project go live. Now,
Okay.
as part of, let's say, whenever you purchase any product, you will get warranty. Let's
Yeah.
say 1 year warranty, 6 months warranty, 2 year warranty. Similarly, whenever a project is gone live, so like warranty period, there is something called hypercare period. Like the team who has implemented SAP, the same team will be there for your support. Let's say in a project, you, I, and there are 10 more members were part of consultants in an implementation project. The exact same 10 members will be supporting the client during the hypercare. This hypercare period can be from 1 month to 3 months on an average. In short,
Okay.
first month close is mandatory. Some clients will tell that we want hypercare for first month end and first quarter end.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
After that, you will shuffle the consultants. Let's say if the client wants to go with the normal support with the same company, they will give the support project to them. In this support project, there is no rule that the same implementation consultant will be there. They will appoint other consultants because for support, different consultants will be there.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
Clear? Yeah.
Yeah. And one more thing, you mentioned that AMC support, Nasir. It mean a new support project or it is extension of this hypercare period?
Both. Whenever you call any AMC project, application maintenance contract, let's say
Okay.
BMW wants to get the support from Wipro. Now this Wipro and BMW will enter a contract. Okay, this
Yes.
contract may be for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. Let's say that they will sign a contract for 2 years. Let's say from November 2023 till November 2025 is the contract between BMW and Wipro. Now Wipro will be supporting BMW until 2025. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Now in 2025 November, BMW decides if they are happy with the Wipro support, they will extend the contract for another 1 year or another 2 year. Otherwise, they feel that no, this the billing is becoming so high, so we want to cut down the cost. We are not getting so much issues. Then we'll go for a little lower level company, maybe level 3 company, who may be giving you support at half cost of your Wipro. Correct?
Okay. Yeah.
So in that case, they will change the contract. They'll go with the support with some other companies.
Okay.
So it can
So you,
it depends.
yeah, so you mean to say that once the hypercare period got completed, the total implementation contract which was happened got closed. This
Yes,
support is again newly registered. Nasir,
correct,
that's it, Nasir?
correct. Company
Yeah.
can go right after the hypercare. with any company for their support, either with the same who implemented SAP or with another company. But majoritarily, every company or every client will go with the initial support by the same company who implemented, because they know the system, and
Yes.
they are the ones who implemented it. So normally nobody will take support from outsiders, at least for the initial couple of years, until the
Okay.
system gets stabilized.
Okay. Sir, one last doubt. Mentioned that SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, is that same the consultant? Is that the same end user manual which the consultant
Correct.
shared?
Same. It's a different term, but it is the same. User manual or user guide, SOP is one and the same.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
because in the outside market, people will call it with the different terms. Here also, we will try to understand the different terms, so that when you come across those terms, you will not get confused. You will at least have an idea that I'm familiar with this term, I heard somewhere.
Yes, yes. Sir,
Okay.
and one last thing. The screen which you shared here, you mentioned
Hmm.
that BKPF, Basic and Farrell Flex are is it okay? Accounting document tables means in that vendor related transactions are not at all uh, stored. That's it, no, sir?
No. When you talk about accounting document includes everything: customer, vendor, GL, asset, tax, everything is part of your accounting document. Now, if you
Okay.
take the extract of accounting document, you may call it as vendor transaction, customer transaction, asset, tax and all. Correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
To extract from your accounting document is your vendor, customer or any other thing.
Okay. Okay. So
Okay?
accounting document nothing but the transaction which we post, whatever that
Hmm.
may be.
Correct.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Ramesh?
Sir, for example, the invoice is pertains to February month, then the payment is posted in this month. I have seen this. What is the general reason that they posted payment posted in this month, which is pertains to the previous, 8 months ago?
This can be that you would have received vendor invoice. Okay, you would have
When
received vendor invoice late, or vendor invoice received but it was forgotten to be processed, or vendor sent the invoice but you did not receive the invoice, or you sent for approval and then it is not approved. It can be any reason. Sometimes vendor also will not bill, and sometimes you will receive the vendor invoice but there may be another open debit in the vendor account, which will stop your invoice to get processed, paid, until your vendor accounts becomes negative.
oh, that is okay.
There may be different
But
reasons. Just an examples that I'm giving you, there may be different reasons. One of the common reasons may be you received the invoice late, or there may be some discrepancy with the invoice which you are dealing with vendor. You may say that you received invoice in February, but it has got some problems, let's say with whatever the items, services that you received, or with the price or any other thing. You have some discrepancy which you are negotiating with vendor, that pricing is too high, quality is low, whatsoever, and then vendor is not agreeing to it, to reduce the amount or to take back the items whatsoever. You are also refusing that unless you reduce or something, we will not release the payment. There will
that
be
is the
different
reason.
reasons. There can be any reason.
So just I want to know the general one. Okay, sir.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, Ajay. Hi, Ajay. Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. I wanted to know whether I can upload the GL master data from LTMC.
LTMC is not applicable from 2020 onwards, since we are working on 2022. On your SAP logon pad, you will find an icon called uh, Fury Launchpad. You have the
Fury
link for
Launchpad.
Fury Launchpad, right?
Yes, I do have,
In the
yes.
Fury Launchpad, search for migrate your data.
Migrate your data. Okay.
Okay, so there you have to do it. Once you are inside the migrate your data, it is as simple as like your LTMC, same like
Okay.
LTMC.
Sure. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Fine then. Let me stop the recording.